Hey everyone, I'm Izzy. Welcome back to the show. Today we are building a greenhouse. An 8-foot by 8-foot greenhouse that's 8 feet tall. Now I like to do some gardening, and I know that really has not a lot to do with woodworking, but woodworking complements gardening a lot more than you think. And my phone is ringing. I forgot to leave it on vibrate. It's much more fun on vibrate. Now, I've been wanting to build a greenhouse for a very long time now, and I'm super excited that I'm finally in a place where I can do that, and I might have went just a touch overboard. So I started with some 2x6 treated material that I'm using for the substructure, or the floor and the joists. Now, never trust when you buy something that is exactly what they said it is. In this case, I had to cut about a 1/4 inch off of the end of my 8-foot 2x6s to make them actually 8 feet. The rest of them I cut to 96 or 93 inches rather, so I'll actually end up with an 8-foot by 8-foot substructure. Now, when you're using this kind of material, it's pretty important that you crown it when you're doing, especially floor joists. And all that means is that you look down the length of it and it'll crown one way or bow one way or the other. And in this case, I'm crowning everything up. Now, once I had all my boards cut and all my joists crowned, I framed everything together with a framing nailer. Now, when you're doing construction, think about things like this. Like for a 2x6, you want to put 3 nails in the field, or 3 nails in each of the joists. And the rule of thumb is for every 2 inches, you want to put 1 nail. So if it's a 2x8, you add 4 nails. If it's 2x10, 5. I hope that makes sense. With my floor framed together, it was time to sheet it, and I'm using some reclaimed pallet plywood. I got off some vinegar crates. This is actually 1 inch thick, so it's really thick stuff, and it's already pre-finished, so win-win. I did lay out the floor to match the dimensions of the plywood, so I didn't have to cut every single piece to fit, which worked out really nicely. So with the floor all framed, wanted to make sure that it was very level. I am going to be doing some hydroponics in the greenhouse, and having it nice and level will help with water flow when I set that system all up. Now to do that, I just cut off some blocks that Megan put underneath each corner, and we raised it up or lowered it as needed to get it really nice and level. Now I want to be able to move this around, so I didn't put posts in the ground. And after that, it was on to framing, so I cut the material to the length I need. Now, before we get into that, let's take a quick minute and hear a word from our sponsor. The next 60 seconds to talk to you guys about the Zero G Pro hose from Technor Apex. Nothing I hate more than those giant garden hoses, lugging them around, trying to move them from place to place. The other thing that really drives me nuts is if you live around brick or trees or drag them across the yard, you end up with a leak. Now, that's never any fun. The Zero G fits in the palm of my hand. This is a 75-foot hose, folks, and you can rub it against brick or trees or anything, and it will not pop. It's extremely durable. It's very bright, so you're always going to be able to see it. This is one great hose. This Zero G hose is an absolutely awesome hose. I expect a lot from my tools. I'm tough on them. This is now my go-to hose. You're going to find this on my yard, and if I'm on a job site, you'll find this with me. Very tough, extremely light. This weighs about as much as a 25-foot hose at 75 feet. I highly recommend it. It's legitimately a really, really cool product. I suggest you go check it out. Links in the description box below. Let's get back to the show. Now, the framing was pretty straightforward. I framed everything on 32-inch centers and then built a little doorway. And I am tying all the walls together with the top plate. So with the framing done, it was time to set about making the trusses. Now this is kind of where I started taking things a little bit overboard. Rather than just doing a simple, A structure truss, I wanted to do this cupola-like thing that went all the way down the length of the greenhouse. So I built my first one on the bench and then screwed it all together. And then after the first one was made, I was able to use that as a template to make the other 3. Now while I was doing that, Megan and Danielle were out painting the framing on the greenhouse. And then when I got my trusses all made, I went out and added some siding to the lower level because I wanted to have siding on the lower level. And while I was doing that, Megan went and painted the trusses. And again, I'm using the same palette material from before. This is 1-inch thick palette material that I got off of some vinegar crates. And I have a bunch of it, so I'll be using it for upcoming projects. Now, in this case, I am not putting a stringer, for those of you who are framers will know what I mean. Along the wall there, those 2x4s were really straight, so I didn't have to worry about the peak getting off. So I simply nailed them in place. Then after I nailed the last one in place, I put up a temporary purling to hold everything together. So So the next day my friend Billy showed up, and Billy helped me put the roof on it. We added purlings every 6 inches, which are those green things, and then the little green things with the bumps on them are some pieces I cut out of off the CNC to, make up for the wave in the corrugated material that we're using. Now this is just some inexpensive corrugated clear roofing you can buy at the big box stores. And unfortunately it's pretty cheap. It's really difficult to cut. We tried different methods, including table saws, jigsaws, ended up using scissors, and later on someone told us that the best way to cut this is with a cutoff wheel and an angle grinder, and I tried it and it worked much better. I wish I would have known that little tip before we cut all this stuff. So thanks to Billy, the roof was really short work and it looked really good when it was all said and done, so it was worth the hassle. With that done, Megan started putting on the clear plastic. In this case, we're using what's called an exterior window insulating plastic. So it's like the stuff you put on the inside of your window in the wintertime, except for this is a touch thicker and it is actually heat activated. So if we didn't get it super tight, just go over it with a dryer and heat it down. Now this, I'm not sure if this is going to last very long. It's really actually quite puncture resistant, or doesn't puncture easily, but once it starts tearing, it likes to just go. So we'll see how it works out. I may put a second layer on. I'm thinking probably this fall I'll end up adding glass to it. We'll see. So after all that was done, I put a trimmer piece around all the plastic. And it was easy on the lower kind of square parts, but up on each gable end where all those angles are, I didn't want to have to climb up a ladder, measure it, come down, cut it. So I took all the measurements and I actually built those on the ground. And once I had one done, again, I used the other one as a template, and that worked out perfect. So it was really just up the ladder one time, nail it in place, and I was really happy with the way that worked out. Now, off camera, I did the rest of the trimmer pieces around it, and did all the little detail stuff, like my basket hangers, and then I stopped to play with the ducks and chickens for a minute. They're so cute. And it's done for the most part. I still need to build a door for it, but I haven't decided what I'm going to do with the door, so I'm holding off on that. I might get crazy fancy with it, considering I already put so much effort into making it look nice. Now I do have lights in here because I want to make sure my plants get a full 18 hours of light when they're infants and 12 hours of light when they need it. And we're on a very shaded piece of property, so I do have some grow lights in there and some regular daylight 65 Kelvin daylight bulbs, which also work really well for plants. But I'm thrilled to pieces with the way this turned out, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this build. If you did, please consider subscribing and give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that bell notification when you do. I hope to see you guys real soon. Look at that, it's so pretty in the dark.